and the content that's shared on here. So I really, really appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Without further ado, let's talk about fears today. Again, so many of you have given such positive feedback about the regular Facebook Live on Mondays for Ask Jesse, and about on Tuesdays on the Moral of the Story. And we've talked about doing more of these, and I really want to incorporate them in. So I promise very soon there will be an updated schedule coming. It'll probably be after Unlock Your Greatness in October, where we'll be able to incorporate a couple more regular days during the week. So until then, we'll stick with Monday and Tuesday for sure, and then we'll get at least another one in. It's just my schedule is going to be pretty hectic this next few weeks, getting ready for that. So I had a little spot open up. I actually had a cancellation, and I thought, what better way to spend this time than with all of you and share with you all a little bit about fears. So I hope this will be of value to you, and what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about facing fears, and I want to give you 3 kind of big ideas, quick tips, helpful resources, and ways to face your fear. Now, why is facing your fears so important? Well, any of you who have fears, have struggled with fears, or have had fears influence any portion of your life know that fear is really, it's the ultimate dream destroyer. It is the relationship killer. It is the life ruiner. So many of us live most of our lives staying on the sideline because we're too afraid to get in the game. Because the fear brings up all the what ifs or the what could be's, what might happen, what will they think, what will he say, what will she say. Right? Fear elicits those kinds of responses in us, and it can be almost paralyzing if we allow it to be. Because the relationship so many of us have formed with fear is one that we're taught to be fearful of fear. Right? Fear is meant to be almost paralyzing. It's like, if you ever watch one of those horror movies and you see the people, I don't know about any of you, and if you can relate to this, type yes below or something like that, or push the heart button. How many of you have ever watched a horror movie, and when the person's running in terror from whoever it is, whether it's Freddy or Jason or Michael Myers or something like that, they run screaming and yelling, and then they put themselves in a corner where they're trapped and they seem unable to move? Have any of you ever seen that before, and has it ever frustrated you? Because when I watch that happen, I'm thinking, what in the hell are you doing? Why would you go there? But they're literally frozen with fear. And then as an audience, you might sit there and watch it, and if you're like me, I see a couple yeses. If you're like me, you might find yourself screaming at the TV or the movie screen and saying, what are you doing? And then it's, of course, if that was me, I wouldn't do that. I would run as far away. I would get the weapon. I would do X, Y, Z, right? Because when we watch those horror movies, it seems like a no-brainer of how to face our fear. It seems like who would be paralyzed by the fear? Anybody relate? Yet when it comes to our own life, and we don't have the luxury of having a Freddy Krueger chasing after us, and I say the luxury of Freddy Krueger because sometimes a Freddy Krueger type entity or situation in life, Freddy Krueger as a metaphor, I had a piece of oatmeal stuck, can really force us to a decision. But for most of us, we don't have that. We don't have that kind of Freddy Krueger-esque motivation to make a decision. So instead, what we do is we bide our time with our excuses. So many of us will hop off the boat and look at the shore ahead, and we see the shore and we know we want to get there. But we fear the possibility of getting eaten by sharks, about the waves, about the cold water, about not being able to swim that far, about whatever it is. And so instead we hop on the boat and we sit there and wait. Now the boat's broken and it's slowly sinking, and all the duct tape in the world is not going to stop the boat from sinking. Yet we'll stay on the boat because we're too afraid to swim for shore. Even though we can see it on the horizon, we don't know how far that is away. Most of us aren't that nautically know-how enough to guesstimate distance from that point. But we see what we want. We know it's out there. We know if we swim for it, we might get to it. And we understand that there's some risks. There's sharks, there's all these things, but most of us won't stop to acknowledge the biggest risk, which is staying on the boat. Because while you might be safe, all your dreams, all your hopes, everything else, they exist on shore. You're going to die at some point. And are you just going to go down with the ship sitting there, looking at what could have been? Tragically, most of us do. Most of us we're not willing to risk burning the boat to go for what we want. We're just not. And when I say most of us don't have a Freddy Krueger-esque motivation, and that's because most of us won't put ourselves in that situation. Most of us will commit more to playing it safe in life. What we call safe even though deep down we know it's the biggest risk of all. Because in not taking a risk, I personally think that's the definition of riskless. I think the biggest risk is riskless living. I don't think there's anything more tragic or more lonely than staying on the boat and never going after for what you want. And so my hope is today, if I share these 3 things with you, it's going to inspire you to swim for the shore. It's going to inspire you to find your Freddy Krueger-esque level of motivation. It's going to inspire you to commit to living a life that has some risk and one that is not riskless. And that's not to say we're going to go out and start being careless and doing all these sorts of crazy things at all. And when I say crazy, I should pause that, because a lot of what we might do in going for our dreams might be crazy in the minds of others. Who cares? What matters is what's crazy to you. And again, if you have a dream, you have a goal, and you're letting fear hold you back, I would say there's nothing crazier than that. Right? I would say that might be borderline insanity, because you know what you want, you know deep down what you're meant for. You likely have a voice deep inside, somewhere inside of you, that is speaking to you, calling to you, has been knocking at the door for quite some time of you living a greater life. But for whatever reason you haven't. And fear, more likely than not, is the culprit. And then the excuses that we fuel fear with. See, most of us keep a ton of excuses on hand because we use it for fuel for our fears. Did you know in some languages there's not even a word for try? I was watching this interview the other day, and they were talking about Swahili and how in the Swahili language there's no word for try. I thought, God, that's so amazing, because think about that. What do we use try for? What is try for? What is the purpose of try? It's an excuse. Yeah, I'll try to be there at this time. I'll try to get there. I can't tell you how many people have told me, Jesse, I'll try to make it to unlock your greatness. You know, guess how many of those people actually follow through with it? I know that. I can't tell you how many people have said, Jesse, I'll try to do your coaching. I'll try to do this. I'll try to do that. I'm going to try to make this happen. How many of them actually follow through with it? How many of you know somebody who says, I'll try to make it? When they say, I'll try to make it to whatever it is, how reliable are they to make it there? When you say, I'll try to make it, how reliable are you to make it there? Why do you even say try? You know you're saying it because you just want to soften your no. Right? You just want to soften your no. If you agree with this, put a yes in. If you don't agree with it, put a no in. You know, this great time this isn't where we have to run away right away. We can have some interaction here, so please interact. I enjoy reading your comments. But you guys, are you all with me on this? Right? You're all with me on this? So think about how much of a loaded word that is. I see some hearts on Periscope. Thank you. Think about how much of a loaded word try is. Right? What is it that the wise sage Yoda once said? There is no try. There's only do or do not. And it's so true. Right? We use try as an excuse. Try becomes our ultimate excuse. We use it as fuel for our fears. We load it up and we keep it there around. Now, I get that there might be some times where try seems like the more appropriate answer, but I'm willing to bet, and my challenge is to all of you, is that if you were really committed to doing whatever it was you wanted to do, or if you're really committed to not doing it, you could just say a yes or no. A yes or no would suffice. If you had a party and it was something that you were invited to and you wanted to try to do it, if you really wanted to go, you could make it happen. If you didn't want to go, you probably couldn't make it happen. Right? If you really had something that you were fully committed to realizing and making come to a reality, you could do it. You look at who was it? Thomas Edison, or not Thomas Edison? Yeah, Thomas Edison. I just had a mind fart there. Right? What was it he said? Right? When somebody asked him, how did you persist in creating the light bulb when you failed 10,000 times? You know, how did you keep trying? And what did he say? His response was so amazing. He said, "My good sir, I never failed once. Each time, all I did was I figured out one step closer to making it happen." Right? I just figured out one step closer to making it happen. There was no try for him. His commitment was to figuring out. His commitment was to making it work. So there was no failure ever for him. There was only feedback. And each experience he got with it. So if you were all to look at your fears and start to expand your horizons around them and look at the language behind them, which is kind of a bonus one because I wasn't going to talk about that today. Examine your language around that you use to fuel your fears. That's going to be a bonus. So there's actually going to be 4 things we're looking at now. The second thing I want you to look at is speak to your fear. Speak to your fear. What do I mean by that? Well, so often we get this voice in our head or whatever it is, right? Most of us will have, I don't know about all of you, but do you have a fear voice? Because for me, when my fears pop up, it's usually a voice. It's usually a voice more often than not. And what we will do is we'll usually listen to that voice and take it as a literal. It says, you can't do this, you're not able to, you're not good enough, you're not skilled enough, right? You're not this. I was just reading something on Periscope. And for Periscope, I would still challenge you respectfully to choose a yes or no. We have that voice that pops up and says, I can't, I'm unable to, I'm not capable of, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, I don't have the resources, I don't have this, who am I to think that I can do this? I'm stupid for even imagining that, right? You all know some of those voices. Maybe you want to share one of your voices. Actually, that might be kind of fun for all of us, is type in your comments your favorite fear voice. And when I say favorite, I'm not saying it's your favorite like you want to go out and have tea and crumpets with it. I'm saying favorite in that it's the one that seems to be the most prevalent. The one that seems to be most prevalent. See, more often than not, when that voice of fear pops up, what we'll do is we'll just listen to it and then we respond. We go on to this autopilot and it's like we're zombies. And we go into, what is it, that almost Manchurian Candidate-esque response where we get our cue and we go. We go into this hypnotic like trance and we just act or react, not even stopping to question why. That's ludicrous. Right? Think about it. It's really ludicrous. Think about some of those voices and what they say. Right? You have countless evidence in your life to probably support to the contrary, but in that moment you never do. Right? Even right now, some of you are probably being fearful of those fear voices because I've invited you to type them and share them, yet I don't see any keys moving. Isn't that interesting? Because there might be a voice for you right now that's saying, don't do it, because what is everybody else going to think? Don't do it. Maybe Jesse's going to make some comment about it. Don't do it because it's a stupid one anyways. Whatever that is. But I just wanted to invite you to examine how fear is playing out in a role in your life, likely right now. And I'm starting to see some hearts and little emojis flutter across, so maybe that just hit a nerve. You see, fear will pop up and then we just listen and react. We don't stop to talk with it. We don't stop to speak with it. And so my second tip for you all is to speak with your fear. Speak with your fear. Ask it why. Ask it what the purpose of this is. Right? If your fear voice pops up and it says something to the effect of, you can't do it, ask it why can't I do it? How do you know I can't do it? How do you know I'm unable to? What gives you evidence that I'm stupid? What makes you evidence that I'm not capable? Where do you get your evidence from? Literally have this conversation with yourself, because what you'll find is your unconscious mind is going to start to disclose information. Okay? The unconscious mind is going to start to share, and you're going to start to gain insights behind it. And what you'll start to find is you'll discover that there's a deeper intention, there's a deeper purpose for that fear voice. One that is not at all what you think it is. But see, most of us will settle for what's on the surface. Most of us will settle for just hearing the voice, and then we take it as is. We don't try to understand it. We just go with it. And we accept that to be the gospel. I'm here to tell you that that's not the gospel. That there's something more there. And that the reason and the ability that you have to communicate is so you can communicate first with yourself and figure out what's really going on there. And I promise you this conversation. Now, here's what's really important. When you have that conversation with your fear, listen for the response. You have to listen for the response. And I promise you this. I promise you with all my heart, it will be there for you. But you have to be willing to listen to it. You see, if you just throw it out and say, "Oh, I'm going to say something because Jesse said to ask," you got to do it for you. And you're going to find it's going to give you information. Then if it gives you something and you still have questions or you're still inquisitive about it, ask about that too. Have this dialogue with yourself. And I promise you, within 3 to 5 exchanges, you're going to feel the fear start to dissipate because you're going to understand it more. You're going to understand it more. See, how many of us can watch, how many of us who have ever seen a horror movie before are able to watch it maybe more than once because we understand what's going to happen at the end? How many of you have ever been afraid of something? Maybe it was afraid of a plane, maybe it was afraid of heights, maybe it was afraid of the boogeyman at night. Whatever it was, but once you understood it more, all of a sudden that fear erased. That fear disappeared. Fear may have vanished altogether. Because see, knowledge is going to be power in this, and insight and understanding come from questions. So speak with your fear. Ask questions of it. Okay, number 3. So we talked about languaging we use around fear, the word tries, those types of things. We talk about speaking to it. Number 3 is going to be taking small steps. With most of our fears, we usually look at something as the beginning and then the end, right? There's no middle, there's no second middle, there's no first middle, there's no little itsy bitsy in between. It's literally this jump, right? We have this massive gap of space, and so we look at it and we go, oh yeah, I should do that. And we get our eyes so wide like this and we think, holy shucks, that is a long ways away. How am I going to get there? How am I going to do that? Give yourself some steps. Give yourself some steps, right? We don't have to necessarily just go from A to Z and back around again. There's steps in between that we can take. And so part of what the fear is identifying what those are and figuring out what those steps are. So let's, for example, say that you're afraid of snakes or you're afraid of spiders or something like that. This doesn't mean that you go and try to do it Indiana Jones style and dive into a pit of snakes and let them slither and squirm all over you. That makes me kind of uncomfortable just thinking about it. That's not what this is to say at all, but it's to find some steps in between. So if you're afraid of snakes, perhaps you could pull up a cartoon with some happy cartoon snakes and watch that. If you're afraid of spiders, perhaps you could pull up a cartoon and watch some cartoons of some happy spiders. You know, perhaps you could go to the toy section in a little kid's store and pick up a fluffy little snake or something like that, or a fluffy little spider, something that's cute and cuddly looking, and have that be a step. And yeah, it may seem silly, it may seem whatever, but the thing is you still recognize it to be that. And what happens is it starts to loosen the belief that you have around those things that they're all scary or whatever that is. You'll be amazed at how much incrementally this can help. Now, some of you might dismiss it and say, oh yeah, whatever. You don't know until you try. And I'm willing to bet that if you charted out a course and put a plan together about facing these fears and figuring out what your steps were in between, you could probably do it. But see, again, most of us, we start from A and we look at Z and we think, oh, that's no way. And A to Z must be there for, who knows what or what, right? Meaning A is, I'm terrified, and Z is, I'm jumping in and swimming with them. It's not what we're talking about again. Okay? What we're talking about is taking small little steps. And if you do that, that's where you're going to really start to see shifts happen. Okay, the number 4 thing. So we talked about languaging around our fears. We talked about speaking and communicate with our fears. And then listening to them. We talked about finding small incremental steps to face your fear. Number 4 is if you still find yourself struggling with this, if you're still unable to do it, if fear is still freezing you in your tracks, or you want to get there sooner than later, get a mentor, get a coach, get somebody to help you. Find somebody who you can model, who's done it before, and that you can learn from, right? That's the fastest way. I was watching this interview the other day, and the interviewee was talking about how the reason that she started working with a coach, a mentor in her life, was because she wanted to model successful people. She was dead broke. She was living in this tiny place. She was living off of hardly anything, government assistance and all those types of things. And she was saying, I knew I needed to make a change, and I wanted to be more like whoever it was. And so she started getting mentors because she realized that every person she was interacting with who had any sort of success had some sort of mentor coach. So she thought, if they're all doing it, maybe I should too. You fast forward to some years later, and she's been enormously successful, written numerous bestsellers, and she's getting interviewed by Oprah. And she says, Oprah leans over to her on a commercial break and asks her, she says, how many coaches are you working with? And the lady says, well, 2. And then she started to think after that. She said, well, wait a minute, Oprah's kind of this next level. And so in the next commercial break, she asked Oprah, she said, how many coaches are you working with? Oprah said 4. And you know what she said she did after that? She hired 2 more coaches. See, I say this because success leaves clues. And if you want to be successful at anything in your life, especially if it's facing your fears or if it's growing your business or whatever that is, you can figure out how to do it your own. And these tips, if you implement them, like I said, they will work. And if you're still struggling with it or you still need some more help with it, you got to get somebody to help you, because again, this is you in your life. You're out on the boat and the shore is over there and you can see it in the horizon. Working with the coach and mentor is like saying, okay, I'm willing to get off the boat. I'm willing to burn the boat and commit to going to shore. But I'm still a little nervous. I'm still a little terrified of the sharks, the changing tides, the cold water, all those types of things. I don't know if I can do it alone. Having a coach or mentor there is like bringing somebody in a guide boat and helping you navigate the waters to get to shore. Right? You're going to get there much more safely, much more quickly, and much more efficiently, with room, time, energy, and resources available to really start building on your dream right when you get there. Again, most of us won't do this. Most of us have this I don't know what it is, asinine idea in our mind that we have to go it alone. Right? That it's our burden to bear, and we're going to shoulder all the blame, all the work on our own. And then we're going to march off. And we make it be into our what is the word? The glory of the lonely woman, or the glory of the lonely man. That if we do it ourselves, and nobody can ever say or take anything away from us. It doesn't have to be that way. If you look at any successful person in your life, I promise you this, they have some sort of coach or mentor. And if you're not sure about it, look at your lives up till now. Think about the mentors you've had in your life that have gotten you to where you are. Teachers, when you learn how to read, you learn how to write, you learn how to type. Coaches, mentors, they helped you accelerate your success. Any of your jobs you have, if you had anybody teaching you how to do it, guess what that was? So the irony is so many of you have utilized some sort of mentorship, some sort of teacher, some sort of guide, some sort of coach at some time in your life to do exactly what I'm talking about here, but somehow we get older and we think, okay, that's it, I should figure it all out, I should know it all. Let me ask you this. Can you speak fluent Chinese, Swahili, Russian, and anything else? Well, why not? Because we're not all going to figure it out on our own. I don't know about all you, but I know I could learn how to fly if I wanted to. I could learn how to fly a plane if I wanted to. But guess what? When I want to go from point A to point B, I don't want to take the time, energy, or any of that stuff, or have that responsibility to learn how to fly. I want to invest in somebody who's been there before, who has 50,000 hours or whatever it is behind the cockpit of a plane to get me there where I want to go. Think about that. Our world is rife with and filled with mentorship, leaders, coaches, guides for you. And you've all used them at some point in your life. It's just that somewhere along the line you forgot about it. You thought you had to go solo. I'm here to tell you you don't. And when you decide not to, you are going to join some very elite company. You will join the company of people who have believed in themselves enough and been willing to dare greatly and have boldly moved forward in face of fear to go on and create lives of their dreams. And my friends, with all my heart, I invite you to do that as well. Because if there's one thing I've learned from working with over 4,000 people from all over the world, it's this. Those who are willing to be bold and courageous, those who are willing to burn the boat and go towards the shore, those who are willing to move forward and face their fears, those are the ones who go on and create extraordinary lives. And unfortunately, I see it time and time again, nearly every day, is there's a lot of people who don't choose that. They choose it because of some of the fears we've already talked about. They choose it because we don't use these tools we're talking about now to face their fears. And instead they choose a life of mediocrity, a life of sitting on the ship, looking around, imagining what life could be on the shore, and then pointing the finger at all those people on there saying, you know what? They're just lucky. They didn't have it as easy. They had it easy. They didn't have life as hard as I did. You know, we've all heard the stories. We've all heard those stories. Right? Life's doesn't come down to say who's had it worse or who's had it better. We've all had horribly challenging things in our life. If any of you have ever lived, you're going to have some hard parts of life because that's part of life. Many of you who have followed me around, who have been following me on social media before, know I've had some challenging times in my life. One of my best friends committed suicide, killed himself right in front of me, literally shot himself as I was walking him in the room. I held him in my arms as he died. A few months after that, my dad dropped dead after a 2-year battle with cancer, and this was after being told by the doctor he's in remission. Those of you who are joined in at the beginning, the reason we're doing Sunrise Sunset Day this year is because on Monday the 12th is because that's the birthday of my best friend who was killed in a car crash a few years ago. I know what it's like to hurt and loss. And in between all that too, I've gone through the other life stuff. You know, injuries, relationships ending, friendships ending, all those types of things. I grew up poor. You know, I was a kid that had to carry the rent up to the landlord 3-4 weeks late with my head hanging every time because my mom was too embarrassed to send it in. Right? I got that. I grew up in a family where my parents fought all the time. You know, my way of looking at a relationship was not the most positive growing up. Right? I know what that's like. I've been there, and that's not to say that my story is, you know, more tragic or less tragic than yours. That's not what this is about at all. But what it is to identify with you all as a human and to say that life starts to happen when you face your fears. Right? I've had my stuff come up. I've had to face my fears. I was one of the most shy and insecure people you'd ever meet on my life. I grew up that way most of my life. I never thought in a million years I'd be sitting here talking with all of you and people from all over the world. I never thought in a million years when I was that person that I would have the opportunity and the honor to work with over 4,000 people from, 35, 38 different countries now. I never thought that I would be able to have people come from all over the world. Last year at Unlock Your Greatness, we had people from 8 different countries and 18 different states attend. It was amazing. It was amazing. And I'm here to say that if I can do it, I know you can too. I literally grew up in small town Podunk, USA. Right? Where many of the aspirations in the local culture are to grow up and grow marijuana. No joke. If any of you have ever heard of Humboldt County, you know what I'm talking about. Fears are going to be dream killers. Fears are going to be relationship ruiners. Fears are going to be life destroyers. You all have a choice. And I promise you this, the excuses that are keeping you on the boat of your life, they're not helping you at all. All they're doing is biding time. But for what? And any of you who have ever lived with fear for a tremendous amount of time know exactly what I'm talking about. Because you know the next day happens and nothing changes. And then fast forward a few months, a few years, whatever it is, has gone by. Things are still the same, except now you're a few years older. So, my friends, I invite all of you to use these tools. Use these tools. You look at your languaging around fears. Look at speaking to your fears, talking with your fears. Look at taking the small steps, identifying those in-between steps, and if looking at getting a mentor and coach. Look at getting a mentor and coach because you've used them time and time again already in your life to achieve success. If you would like to have the opportunity to work with me to do that, and I don't know if this is of interest to any of you, what I'll do is I'll put a link at the top of this and a link in the comments below. And what you can do is you can fill out a short form to set up a time for you and I to speak one-on-one and talk about looking at clearing out your fears altogether and really building towards the life of your dreams. I would love to have the opportunity to be your guide through the waters and get you to the shore. All right, that's all I have for you today. Any questions at all? And thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Thank you for the hearts on Periscope. Thank you for all the hearts, thumbs up, and different faces on Facebook Live. What questions do you all have? I have about 5 or so, 6 minutes for questions. What a nice break and surprise. Thank you. You're very welcome. Thank you for sharing. You're very welcome. Really powerful one. Thank you. You bet. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. And Facebook, if I missed some of your questions in the previous thing, I'll scroll back afterwards and I'll answer them. I'll just take the ones that are popping up right now. And if you asked a question earlier on Facebook and I didn't see it, or Periscope, you can go ahead and repost it now. I am looking for and actively answering questions for the next few minutes. And thank you for the hearts and everybody for the shares. And I know it's a Saturday and you're taking your time out of your Saturday to be here with me. And it really means a lot to me. So I appreciate that. Thank you for that time. Any questions at all about this? Was this helpful? Thank you from South Africa. You're very welcome. Thank you for joining us from South Africa. How do you remain positive and motivated? You know what, Claire? Do me a favor. If you scroll back to yesterday on the 1 Year 1000 Challenge page in the Ask Jesse section, put that question there And I will answer that one on Monday's Facebook Live for Ask Jesse. Right now, we'll just keep it focused in on what we just talked about today, because I only have a couple minutes and I want to make sure if there's any questions specifically to fear, I can address those. What do you find keeps you absolutely accountable to your goals? Same thing, Jack. If you could go to yesterday, Friday at 8 a.m., I posted on the 1 Year 1000 Challenge Facebook page. I'll be happy to answer that on there. So just put that on there and we'll answer it Monday on the Facebook Live section. Again, if there's anybody who has questions specific to fears, we'll do this. Is it a good thing to have that fear voice to get you going, or should you get rid of the voice? That's a good question. It really depends, and here's why. I think if we're in a situation where we have a Freddy Krueger-esque type thing happening, we need to have some sort of thing that kicks us into gear, right? There's a lot of power in that fight or flight response. Now, when I used Freddy Krueger as a metaphor, I'm not saying we're having the Freddy Krueger chasing after us at all. What I'm saying is we put that level of intensity in our life. Because if you looked at your goals, your dreams with the same approach as if you didn't achieve them, you're going to have to deal with Freddy. I bet most of you would have more of a proverbial fire lit under your asses to go after them, right? I know I would if I had Freddy chasing me. And so, in that situation, and then also remember, there's going to be a deeper reason why that fear is there. And so, what's important is I think the voice is fine when you learn to communicate with it, right? Just like with anything else, if we look at any relationship we have in our life, those relationships are built on the foundation of them, and the success of them is built on our ability to communicate with them, right? The more we communicate, the more we understand, the more we know. Those of you who have been in a long-term relationship or married, or even if you're not anymore, you know that the success of the relationship was built around the communication in it. The more you communicate, the more you got to know your partners. The less you communicate, the less you got to know them. And it's going to be the same. We have relationships with these voices in our head because it's a part of who we are. And so in essence, it's building on that relationship we have with ourselves. So I think there's a reason for the voice. It's just learning how to communicate with it as with any other relationship. Great question. I have time for one more question. Does anybody have one more about fear? And if not, and again, if any of you would like my help with this, I'm going to post a link on Facebook right afterwards for Periscope. Unfortunately, I don't know how to do that if we can. And I'll put it up there. So if you like my help with fear in any sort of mentorship or coaching role, I'll put it at the top of this and in the comments below. All right? Overcoming fear of rejection. Beverly, what I would suggest you is use these tips, what we talked about, because I just gave you 4 really good ones. Start with the first 3. If you can't work through it with that and have the conversation about it, then reach out to a coach or mentor. If you would like my help, you can do that. Otherwise, find somebody in your area, whatever that is for you. And I'm not saying that I just want to end with this. When I say coach, mentor, that's not any way to say you have to be me. I understand that I might not be everybody's cup of tea. Okay? Totally fine. But please, I can tell you this because of the value it's brought to my life, because I've studied successful people and I know what it brings to theirs. Do it for yourself, because all of you know this already to be true. All of you have utilized coaches and mentorships in your life at some point. If you went to school, if you've learned anything, you had any sort of guide, teachers, whatever that is, guess what that was? It accelerated your results, it accelerated your success, and it got you to where you wanted to be a lot quicker. So you already all know the value in it. So value yourselves enough in your dreams and what you see on the shore of your life to get somebody to help you get there. All right? Thank you so much, everybody, for today and being here. I hope you found value in this, and thank you all for the hearts, the likes, the thumbs up. Please, if you found value in this too, share it with somebody. Share it with your friends, your family, your coworkers, whoever you feel would benefit from it. You are ultimately the voices I have out in the world, and you're going to be able to spread my message way faster than I ever will. So I appreciate so much all of you being here and spending your time with me today and giving me your attention, and for all the great questions and all the great feedback. You've been an amazing audience, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. And if you're free, Monday around 11:40 a.m. Pacific time and Tuesday around 11 a.m. Pacific time, we will be doing Ask Jesse Live Q&A on Monday, and we'll be talking about the moral of the story on Tuesday. All right, everybody, take care. Enjoy your Saturday. Make it a memorable one. Bye-bye.